This is the Coming Home Podcast with John Allen. And welcome everybody to this episode of the Coming Home Podcast with John Allen. And in all honesty, I had to do a redo on the introduction here. I messed up. But I'm happy to be doing this with Miss Lexie Koren. This is my first video podcast. And now, again, welcome. This is the real welcome this time. Hi, Lexie.
Hi, John. Thanks again.
Yeah, again. Yeah. Hey, you know, technical things are not my forte, so we'll take the mistakes as they come.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're all trying all these new things, right? Trying to innovate and communicate as best as we can with whatever it is that we have near us.
Yeah, yeah. And and speaking of that, today is the first day of a new round of shutdowns in my city. You're in Oslo.
Yeah.
You guys have had it a little bit rougher than us, but I guess it is a sign of the times. Now there's a shutdown where I am here in Drammen. I don't think, I'm thinking optimistically. I don't think things are going to get out of control. I think people are going to do the right thing. I think people are very tired of the corona situation, and because of that, they're going to do the right thing. And I think we're going to be back on our feet to somewhat normal life in not too long. What do you think? Am I naive?
I sort of don't want to kill your optimism, but I'm not as optimistic as you.
Oh, you killed my optimism.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but you know what? Okay, yeah, but I can't argue with you because I can't help but think positive. But the reality of it is COVID is no joke. And we have these new variants coming out and nobody really knows how rough it's going to be. So I guess we just got to have to take it as it comes.
Well, yes and no. I think there's something else that we need to take into consideration as well, and it is the structures that make the infection happen more quickly. Like, say, for instance, in the east of Oslo, the infection rates have gone up, and it's not because people don't care or people don't have enough information, or the information is getting out there now. It's a bit late, but it's getting out there now. But it's because if you think about people they're essential workers, they get low wages, they live together in crowded spaces. Of course, it's going to be difficult to control the infection rates. So maybe we need to look at the social structures behind the pandemic. Other people can isolate. I'm lucky enough to be in a big house where I don't have to. I don't meet many other people, although I would love to, as would we all. But I have that privilege, and other people don't.
You know, and everyone, I guess it is a certain amount of realism in the statement that Norway is a nation of equals. But at the same time, as we see now, it's not totally equal. There are some people who are affected in a more profound manner. There are social differences. Where would you say Norway is in the state of things when it comes to social equality? I know this is something that you believe strongly, and as do I. Let's talk about that for a little. Where is Norway when it comes to social justice and social equality?
I think, if we compare Norway to other countries, of course, it's going to be far more better. Far better for many people here. But if we look at the way it's been developing, then you'll see that Norway has a problem with cognitive dissonance. And I know it's controversial to say this because on the one hand, you have this illusion that we have a welfare state that provides for everyone. And on the other side, it's being dismantled. All the social services and all kinds of measures that were in place to take care of its citizens, it has now changed and doesn't exist anymore in the way that it used to when I was growing up here.
How has it changed from the time when you've now I've been here almost 20 years, and while I'm not under any doubt that things have changed as far as the social welfare system, I never knew very much about the social welfare system. So those changes or the degradation of the social system in Norway has kind of passed me by. I haven't noticed it. But how would you put words on these negative changes?
I'd say it started with a common vision. So after the war, the country wanted to take care of its citizens. We were all in it together. It's that word dugnad that comes up here, which is taking one for the team or doing something. I don't know how you would say that in English. Dugnad.
Yeah, you know what? There really is no word or concept for that. I guess the best way to say it is it's this spirit of collective work, the spirit of
Right.
volunteering your services for the greater society. Yeah.
Right. So that's sort of been part of the language since the post-war era, where you wanted to create a fairer society, and then oil came, and that made it possible, and a redistribution of wealth, and it was a very lovely idea, and it worked for a while, and then individualism comes in, right? And that's where this is like it's not just Norway but the entire world, and the human race lives between this conundrum of the collectivization of responsibilities, and then individualism that sort of start crashing at some point, and then individualism start taking over in the 90s, 80s, 90s, and then you get in the language stays. So the idea and the idea of fellesskap, the
Common
community,
good, the common effort,
the
the
common,
collective
yeah,
effort. Yeah.
right? That stays, just the language of it. But then you start putting in managers. So you start putting in middle management here, middle management there,
Mm.
compartmentalizing it, and then dehumanizing it. So the person that is coming to get services because they're in a difficult situation are no longer facing another human being who's going to help your fellow citizen, which is part of that concept, the original concept. But instead, you become a number, and that
Yes.
number you go through a series of protocols and forms that you have to fill out, and then you don't get to meet another human being, but instead you're in front of a computer pressing buttons, and that creates a dehumanization. And it's already difficult enough to be in a hard life situation. And when you put that, when the state that has power puts that onto you, then I mean, what does that do to your mental health, to your belief in the system, to your belief in politicians? So these are the thoughts that I'm sitting around when I'm thinking about the pandemic and how we're going to move forward.
I think of Norway as this land where we don't have to worry very much about losing our job. We don't have to worry so much about going hungry. There is a safety net there, and the fall into that safety net is not very far. We're
Hmm.
very well supported financially, economically here, but at the same time, people are suffering mentally because of these different changes in the way Norwegian society has to function over this past year. Um, and I have to wonder, they're putting, as you say, they're putting focus where it needs to be. So we have this common this common good, this common safety net. But yes, they are overlooking the individual. I think they're looking at like, well, we have to make sure everybody has enough money and everybody's job is secure and the children are taken care of. But they're forgetting about that individual, the individual who maybe before the pandemic started was getting psychological treatment, counseling or something like that. And now maybe that counseling has stopped for that individual.
Hmm.
But the greater system is not really doing anything to pick up the slack in that area, if you will. So
Yeah.
maybe the common good here in Norway is too common, or they expect it to be too common. They expect for that uniform method of support to work for every individual. That's just not the case.
Hmm. Yeah.
And,
Well,
and that's not to say and that's not to say that Norway is not functioning better than, for example, the United States, because of
right.
course it is. It's been horrible.
Hmm.
Things are getting better back home in the States, but it was quite horrible at some point. And I don't think we can say that on a national level it's horrible here in Norway, but there are things that could be done better. Yes?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with you. Um, to some extent, but
Can you disagree with me, please? I have to say this. Okay, you are the first guest that I have on my video podcast, but I was supposed to have I'll call him a gentleman that I was supposed to have yesterday, and he's a rather significant political figure here in Norway.
all right.
And he chickened out at the last minute, and I was looking forward to it because he's quite the right leaning figure,
All right.
whereas I'm more center left, and we had, there was no animosity between he and I, but we had planned to talk about the things we disagree on. So when you say that you kind of agree with what I say, I'm saying, yeah, okay, give it to me. Give me the disagreement then. Let's have the argument now that I should have had yesterday with that guy.
I'm not sure I want to argue with you. I'm a lover, not a fighter.
So am I. First said by Michael Jackson, and then you, and then me. I'm a lover, not a fighter.
No, well, but I agree with that. There is a system that expects you to fit into it like that, right? And then individual needs, yes, and I think that's part of the dehumanization process as well.
Yes.
The fact that you are not met where you are, because you can't be met where you are. You're a number now.
Yeah.
How can you be met?
Right.
And that's also that's a ticking bomb. The mental health situation here, well, everywhere really, because the isolation is a killer. That is the worst thing for our well-being. We are creatures that need to bond. We are creatures. We need to socialize. I remember like last year there was a point a friend and I were told off for moving our hips. We were basically just standing or sitting by a table and chair, like high rise table chair. So and they were playing live music. A friend of ours playing live music, and I don't know about you, but when music starts, I start moving my hips and I just can't control it. We got told
I don't even
off.
hear any music right now. I just see you dancing in your chair, and I started tapping my foot right away. So yeah, I get it.
There you go. So we were doing that, and then we got told off. And then in my head, it's like, what?
Wait, hold on, back up. What did they say? What did they say to you?
They basically told us that if we didn't stop dancing, we had to leave. And we're like, we're not.
You're kidding me.
We're not dancing. I'm just here.
But what kind of a music venue? What kind of a music venue would tell the patrons not to dance? I don't understand that.
Well, it was there was a thing that came out last year when the bars were still open, that you couldn't do that. You couldn't stand and you couldn't dance.
Was it that strict that you couldn't even? Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So so it does. I mean. Moving as part of what I need to feel alive, right?
Yeah,
so suddenly we're not allowed, so we can't hug, and a lot of this is really understandable. I mean, okay, so if you it's through contact that you can get infected, but the fact that you can't dance, you can't sing. There was this choir that they all got infected, and even if they were standing a few meters apart and singing because of the droplets. So it's like, okay, you can't sing, you can't dance, you can't hug, you can't. What is it that you can do? So you start going inwards, and then you see all this fear and devastation around you all the time, and all the press conferences that you get every other day, and things are changing around you. We need a safe space. Basically, every human being needs a secure base to ground, to restore, and then to go out and venture out to the world again. But that's when your home becomes it's sort of it becomes your war zone if you have a war zone in your head. So it's very challenging right now.
Yeah, the home becomes it metamorphosizes into something, from the home atmosphere to almost like a bunker atmosphere in a war zone, or at least to protect you from the war zone. And that's not what a home is supposed to be. I find myself trying to find the happy medium because I'm both extremely sociable, an extrovert, but at the same time, I'm incredibly introverted and shy and extremely protective of my private life. So I have that duality there.
Mm.
And the funny thing is, and I'm not a Gemini either, I'm a Taurus, but I have that duality. And I find myself oddly at ease during this past year. I
Mm.
see how other people are suffering, and I've done things to try and identify with that. I've done things to uh, hopefully comfort some people, some friends and acquaintances that I have. So I see what's happening. I see how people are suffering, but I have found an odd comfort, an odd
Mm.
peace, not quite a stasis, but a lack of pressure is what I have felt over this past year. I felt a lot
Mm.
of other things, among them a neck operation, but I have
Oh.
also felt, yeah, it's awful. You see, I'm
Mm.
kind of stiff and I'm wearing the
Yeah.
turtleneck shirt and everything, but I've felt this odd sense of settling in
Mm.
and comfort with the situation. And I wonder, what is that all about? What would you say to me if I came to you? You know, you are the therapist, and I came to you and I were to say, I feel strange. I feel almost guilty because I feel so much at peace over this past year, while my
Mm.
friends and acquaintances and fellow countrymen and fellow citizens of Norway and back home are suffering. What would you say to me if I told you I was struggling with that?
So are you struggling with guilt? Is that what you're saying?
Kind of.
Okay. That reminds me. I'm not going to give you a therapy session here, but it does make me think about survivor's guilt.
Is
Um,
that the same kind of thing?
I
Is it
wouldn't.
really? Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's the same, but it makes me think of that because um, there's a well. You're saying that you're struggling with the guilt of everything being so difficult for other people, but you're having some sort of peace with that.
I guess I say guilt in the interest of playing the devil's advocate, you know,
Okay.
to put a spotlight on that issue. I don't exactly feel guilty personally, but let's say that I know people who are, you know,
Mm.
uh, as isolated as I've been active. My ears have been active and my mouth has been active. I've been talking and listening to a lot of people, and there are people who are struggling with a
Yeah.
sense of guilt that they're
Mm.
actually doing okay.
Mm. I
Yeah,
think everyone copes the way they can. Everyone's
yeah,
doing the best they can right now, and it's important not to berate ourselves for whatever it
mm,
is that we're feeling, and some of us enjoy the solitude and feel, because the world before the pandemic was very stressful. We had all these deadlines to do, all this pressure to achieve, and suddenly that all stopped. And to many, that may have given us a break. It must have
yeah,
given us a break from all the pressures of life. So if you can
yeah.
enjoy that, if you can feel calm, good on you, wonderful.
Yeah.
And remember some of
So
that for
I'm
when.
not an asshole for feeling. I'm not an asshole for feeling okay.
No, not for that. That's great.
Not for that reason. But speaking of being an no,
Oh
no,
dear.
it's how does this this round of shutdowns, how has this affected your work as a therapist? Are people, is it easier for people to come to you, or have people really withdrawn and you're seeing fewer clients? I
Mm,
don't want to get into your financial
mm.
personal business, but just, you know, in general as a therapist, how have things been with people?
There is a lot. People need at this moment. There's a lot of requests
Yeah.
to have somebody to talk to,
Yeah.
and I see individuals and couples as well. So this obviously affects relationships,
Sure.
and
Sure. Somebody who
um,
maybe has a boyfriend or girlfriend who does not live with them,
for
I would imagine they would
instance, yeah.
struggle when there's quarantine issues and things like that. See, I have my wife and we have our two
Mm.
kids, so I'm okay. I have, yeah, they talk too much. I'll put it to you that way. So there, I have people to talk with, but I think of those who are either single or maybe they're in a relationship, but they don't live together.
Mm,
That could be an unhealthy amount of alone time without any touch,
yeah.
without any real face to face communication.
Mm.
That's unthinkable to me. As
Well,
much as I value my
hmm,
alone time.
it's important. It's important to
It
have your
is,
alone time.
sure. But
But
you have to have contact as well. You have to have
yeah.
someone to touch and
Mm,
be touched by, and someone to speak to, and you feel their physical presence right there. It's one thing, this is nice over a
mm,
screen, but you
mm.
have to have that person there. And not everybody can have that. A lot of people have had that cut off over the last year.
Yeah, that's right. That's right, and it's not easy. However, there
No.
are creative ways to generate spaces that makes you feel connected to another person or other people.
How
Um,
do you do that?
well, you can create, you can have dates online. But make sure that you put you put that space. You can decorate around yourself. You can make a big deal out of it. Put a bit of theatrics, or you can watch something
Okay.
online together at the same time, and and comment together. I know it's not the same. It's not. You can't compare it, but it is when you
It's
put
better
time
than
aside.
nothing.
Exactly, you put time aside to spend time together like that, it could be very beneficial for the relationship. Also, there's something really good, like for single people who are meeting people online, and before perhaps it would be much quicker. So you jump into it right away, but now you have the time to actually get to know the person through conversation, and it can create a whole different level of intimacy that may not have been possible before.
You know what? I was thinking of exactly that just a few days ago, that whole thing with online dating. I have zero experience with that.
Mhm.
I don't understand exactly how it's done, but I was thinking about people who do that, where you have a year or maybe more. We'll have to see how long these Corona times go. But let's say you have 18 months of getting to know someone strictly online,
Mm.
and then all of a sudden the coronavirus is under control and you have the opportunity to meet that person. Can you imagine what a meeting that will be
Mm.
after you've used 12, 14, 18 months to actually get to know someone and possibly fall in love with them, or at least begin to fall in love with them? And then after all that building up of positive tension, boom, after so long you finally get to meet them.
Mm. Ah,
I,
like
I just I just was running that thought through my head. It's just what a nice experience that could be.
right. It's a little bit like the John Austen style, old school promenade, Bridgerton. I don't know.
Yeah,
But you can factor in sexy time in there. There
I would
is,
imagine you
yeah,
could. Yes,
yeah.
easily, easily.
I mean, you have screens and all of
But
that. But sorry, Sean.
no, I was going to say, but part of the reason that I didn't have that politician on yesterday was that he was a little wary of, I had to send you a link so that you could connect into the server,
Mm.
and he was kind of, let's call it excessively net savvy.
Hmm.
It's where he wasn't really quite that comfortable coming on video and using an external server link and things like that. And I
Mm.
wonder how that filters out throughout society, with the thought of people actually going on camera to have a sexual experience with a potential, well, I guess they are a partner if they're on camera having a sexual experience together. But I wonder how much of a hindrance that is for people.
I don't actually think it is. In fact, I think
No?
it's the other way around, especially when it comes to undesired dick pics. That is something that happens a lot, and this is the part where I talk about consent. I think we need to have that conversation. Do I want that picture? Is it okay, or is it okay if I send you this picture? Have a conversation around that, and then pictures like that should never be shared then to other people. That should be like, and it is illegal as well. So
Sure. But
I
I
don't
guess
think
a
that
lot of
stops
social
people.
mores,
Mm.
I guess a lot of social mores are now being adjusted to fit into this net society that we've kind of all been forced into because of COVID. I
Mm.
guess if you are a healthy thinking man
Mm.
and you understand that you can't unzip your pants and show your dick and balls to a woman in public, I guess that same healthy thinking man would
Right.
understand that you have to ask the lady before you send her a photo or a film of that online. I mean, I
Right?
guess it's the same kind of morality. It's the same kind of politeness. It's the same kind of respect, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, I wish people would understand that, but that's a great way of putting it. Exactly. I mean, you wouldn't do that out in public, would you?
No,
And so
no.
why is it okay to just do that, to send it to random women sometimes? It
I've
happens a
never
lot.
understood that. I've never understood that because any guy who does that, they end up getting ridiculed. Don't they understand that they are going to be made fun of? I've never met a woman who has said that she gets pleasure out of a dick pic from a stranger. I
Oh. Yeah, no, that's true. But then again, you have
although
yeah.
although just to continue on that thought, I'm just running a chain of thought here. Although I see the money making capabilities, from what I understand, on OnlyFans. I don't know if
Hmm.
everybody knows what OnlyFans is.
Yeah.
There are some strange things on there. So maybe that could be an outlet for these men who feel like they have to send dick pics to strangers. Just raise up an OnlyFans page, put your dick pics there, and maybe somebody will pay you for it.
I
And
think
then you're killing two birds with one stone. You're making a living, but you're also saving these women from being victims of your horrible looking penis.
business win-win. No, I think actually that the action of sending a dick pic has to do with power and
I think so.
assessing.
Yes.
Yeah, so showing your power in a twisted way.
I used to think that it was men who were insecure, but I think it's the opposite. I think it's men who have an overinflated sense of self-assuredness and power, and they think that they are she wants this, I'm just going to do it. I don't understand that. I really don't understand that thinking.
Oh, it's very entitled behavior. But that doesn't. I
It
mean,
is.
yeah. But going back to the dating thing, if I mean, this is an incredible amount of people who do that. But when you have the conversation before that, it can be quite sexy, quite lovely to be getting sexy pictures from the people that you like. And the problem is that a lot of pictures of females nudes are being leaked, and that's another power thing, right? So
Yes.
the guy the relationship doesn't work, then the guy leaks the picture of the girl. This is assuming is a hetero relationship, which is mostly the case when it has been like that. So power
Yeah.
dynamics are things to be explored, and abuses of power as well. Um, yeah.
I'm thinking about the level of trust that a woman must have in a guy to engage in an online relationship, period, but
Mm.
especially to take that online relationship a step further to where you're actually sharing intimate time online, whether it's photos or
Mm.
video or both. What an extraordinary amount of trust that woman has to have in that guy.
Mm.
And well, actually, and vice versa,
Yeah. Yeah.
There just has to be maybe, and I'm not saying I'm anti online dating or anything. I just don't understand it. But maybe the act of online dating involves more trust than you have to have for, you know, regular offline dating. I don't want to use the word regular. Let's say offline dating.
Yeah.
Maybe you have to have more trust to do online dating than you do offline dating. I don't know. What do you think?
I'm not so sure about that because if you do offline, I mean, up until now, online dating has been a sort of just a place where you meet someone, just like you would in a bar or in a restaurant. Or well, no, you don't meet people at restaurants, do you? But anyway, more social, uh, and like just a starting point, a meeting point, and then you take it
Yeah.
offline. But
Yeah.
now because of the pandemic, a lot of people
Now it
have to
stays
do it.
online
Now it
more.
stays online for a while, and and I think that builds up the trust if you can have that communication and intimacy. But there's always we never know what's going to be on the other side. The,
I can
that's so
remember
yeah.
I can remember when I first met Snoopy, my
Hmm.
wife. We She had come to Chicago to visit our common friend that she and I have, and we met and we hung out for a couple weeks, 2.5 weeks, and started to get to know each other. And then this was back in the early days of online chatting. This is right around 2000, roughly. Was it 99 maybe? 1999, 2000. This is the early days of the internet and online chatting and whatnot. And I can remember talking to her and seeing her sitting there talking back at me, and it had a different kind of intensity.
What way?
Well, of course, when I met her, I was attracted to her in all ways, and among those ways was the physical attraction. And I can remember sitting there talking to her on, through this video chat, and just wishing with all my might that I could have that physical connection. Because, again, back then, this was in the early days of being able to chat through video online. So it was a really weird, almost a futuristic concept. So there was that element in it that was like, oh wow, I'm actually seeing her. But then the hope, the desire, is that a good word? The desire, exactly, the desire to actually be there. And she said this to me since then as well, that it was such a intense, it was kind of like a continuance of us getting to know each other after we had spent those couple of weeks originally, and then another month or so of online chat. And it just built our connection, built our expectations.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It was this build up to when we would see each other again. So as much as I say, and I've said this so many times on my podcast, I think I've said it to you on just about every episode I've had with you, we get into this online dating issue to greater or lesser depth. But I've always said that it's such a strange thing to me. But again, it's just fallen into my head that the beginning of my relationship with Snoopy, at least part of it, was online chatting, video chatting.
Voila, so you've done it.
I've done that.
But there's something really beautiful there about harnessing the power of the erotic. So this is erotic energy that you were building on, and you both participating in that by holding and suspending and having that breath there of anticipation and expectation. And it can be quite exquisite, quite beautiful. And I think we need to play more with that, because something that happened up until now is that we need to do is instant gratification. Okay, I want it, I get it. I want it, I get it. And then we lose the in between.
Porn addicts.
Yes.
Porn addicts.
Right?
Yep.
So you lose the erotic, and then and you become pornified. Everything is pornification. Your desire becomes is pornification. And we lose the connection with ourselves. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't watch porn, and there's lots of really good ethical porn out there.
Sure. Well, I heard Pornhub really cleaned up their site. It was all over the news, in fact, mainstream news, that they got rid of, they jettisoned a good percentage of their videos because they were not verified authentic Pornhub accounts. In other words, they could be from some crime syndicate or maybe a trafficking league or something. So they I guess there's a certain amount of vetting in their acceptance of regular Pornhub contributors, but a bunch of videos were kicked out to make it more legitimate, if I can use that word, to make it more healthy, to make sure that there was consent from all parties.
Yeah,
which was an interesting thing. So in other words, online porn, it appears to be taking steps towards becoming more healthy and more ethical.
It's got a long way to go though, because Pornhub it goes so quickly, and everything is clickbait, right? And the more addicted you become to it, the more extreme you're gonna want the violence to go, and that's the thing that makes people stay engaged, and that's the thing that makes money. So, but
yeah. I guess the there's always going to be addiction to porn, whether that porn is clean and and everyone has consented to all the actors, actresses, participants have consented, the viewer will still have that potential to be addicted to it. But I guess what I'm touching on is the fact that they're trying to make that the filming aspect of, they're trying to make the content more ethically produced. In other words, they're trying to step in and clean up in the allegations of women being filmed against their will, underage porn actresses and things like that. It appears from what I saw in these news blurbs that Pornhub is trying to clean up in that aspect.
I wouldn't say underage porn actresses. I would say victims of child trafficking and rape and children. Yeah.
Let's say it the way it is. Good. Thank you for that. You're right. Let's say it. Let's put a spotlight on exactly what it is. Child rape and child trafficking. Absolutely.
Right. So I'd rather move instead of hoping for Pornhub to change, I'd rather move my attention to erotic filmmakers that are actually doing the work, and they have been from the beginning, like Erica Lust. Or the company called Valessa. I'm not affiliated with any of these, just so you know.
No.
But
just watch it from time to time.
Absolutely. And especially Erica Lust. Her videos, her work is art. The kind of stories that they get in there, the type of bodies and the representation and the cinematic artistry is just gorgeous. It's delicious. It's erotic. It's not just pornographic, but it's also erotic because it stimulates all the senses and it makes you participate.
So does she make these films? Does she make these films independently? Does she have a hand in the actual production of it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
but that's kind of what I'm talking about. What Pornhub is actually doing. They're getting rid of the opportunity, or they're trying to get in the way of, Joe Blow with a dirty mind and a 16-year-old sex slave putting up a video. Pornhub has, from what I understood, taken concrete steps towards stopping that, so that people like Erica Lust have more of a spotlight. And the people who are less professional, less ethical, not following the rules, breaking the law, hurting people, that those people don't have the same access into uploading videos on Pornhub like they used to.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know the details. This is just a series of, I want to say it was maybe 6 months ago, a series of news media blurbs came out that Pornhub had done this.
Yeah. I still go over to Erica Lust's webpage and support that instead of going to Pornhub. Definitely much more fulfilling.
Is it porn more from the female point of view? Because that is a different kind of porn video when it's from the female point of view. Is Erica Lust more in that line of porn?
It is. I think it's more diverse. You get all kinds of bodies, all kinds of ways of having sex. It's not just the thing about regular porn is that it's constantly the male gaze, right? It's that the penetration. I'm going to conquer and penetrate, and it is it's that kind of thinking.
That's not life.
Exactly. That kind of thinking has it's colonizing. I'm going to colonize this body. I'm going to take over this body. So it's reproduction of that kind of thinking, and it's so much more exciting to open our minds and our desires to something more expansive, more fulfilling.
Because sex is not. Let me speak for myself. Now I'm going to embarrass my wife. No, I'll speak for myself. Fulfilling sex is not that brutal. The stuff that you see on some of these sites, that brutal, manhandling. And I think that that's a good word for it. Manhandling of a woman, brutalizing thing that you see in modern porn. That's not fulfilling. That's not real life for a lot of people. But the sad thing is that it is becoming real life, because think about that 12, 13-year-old boy who watches porn for the first time and that's what he sees.
Mm-hmm.
Think about how that is going to shape his thoughts about sex as he goes through puberty and into manhood. And also think about what that kind of porn will do for a young 12, 13-year-old girl who sees that. What is that going to do to her view of herself as a young woman going through puberty and into adulthood? Do you see what I mean? I think we can agree it's extremely destructive the way porn is today.
And you see now that kids down to 9 years old have access to it on their phones.
Yes,
and this is
it's
the
frightening.
first thing they see. And if you put that in conjunction with a non-existent sex education, that is just trouble in the making for the future. So we need to act now, and we need to have proper sex ed at schools. And
What age should that start?
when they're 4 or 5 years old. And of course you that kind of education, it is what's the word in English? You adapt it to the age group. So when you're 4 or 5, you talk about body parts. You give them their the names of the body parts, and you talk about body autonomy. So this is my body. Nobody's allowed to touch my body, only me. And that sort of things. You don't go into. It's not porn. That's the problem, because in our minds we think, sex ed is porn. We're gonna pollute the children's minds. That's not
but
what it is.
But sex is not porn.
Right.
No. So but how do you explain that to the parent who says, how dare you teach my 5, 6, 8, 10-year-old child about sex? How dare you? Why do you think that's necessary? Why can't I teach my child? What do you say to a parent who has that approach to it?
Well, it's I'd be curious about how they would teach their children and what they know and what it is they're afraid of. Because there's a fear behind that. First of all, like, I don't want you to teach my children. So what is your fear? What is it? What's your thinking behind? What do you imagine sex education is going to be? And I would like to hear that out before I say anything else.
Some of these parents have that old puritanical view about sex. Definitely don't have it until you're married. And if you're not going to have sex until you're married, why should you even talk about it before you're married? Least of all when you're in third grade.
Right.
That's the view that a lot of, especially back home in the States, a lot of right-leaning, conservative-leaning parents are going to have that view.
Right. Yeah.
And I guess my answer, and I'm far from a therapist, but my somewhat informed, actually I'm very informed, my very informed opinion on that would be, it's important to have some level of sex education at a very early age, because kids are exposed to sex in very improper ways at very young ages. So you have to educate them, is my idea, to protect them.
Yeah.
Like you say, sex education doesn't mean showing a penis being inserted into a vagina. It can be that, but it doesn't have to be. Like you say, at the age of whatever, first, second grade, you start talking about body parts and your identity within this body, your ownership of your own body, and how you should be able to live with the expectation that others are going to respect your body.
Yes.
And your wishes about what you want done and don't want done to it. So that would be my answer to that conservative parent that says, why should we be educating children on sex?
Yes.
There's my answer right there. It's for protection.
Right. Well, yes, protection and self-esteem. The more you know about yourself, the better you feel about yourself as well. And don't you want to raise the generation of compassionate and empathetic, wise young children?
Yeah. I saw it so many times. I saw it too many times during my years as a police officer. When I specialized in juvenile policing, for kids, way too many kids, both boys and girls, you're talking about self-confidence and self-image. They were exposed to some form of sexual abuse at a very young age. And I was a police officer long enough, roughly 7 years, to where I could see some of those kids who for whom I was an advocate when they were abused at the age of maybe 5 or 6. And I watched them grow up over 5, 6, 7 more years and just see that downward spiral of self-esteem, the piling on with compound psychological issues. And it's just a horrible experience. So I can't help but think all these years later that had that child had some form of education about what is proper and improper and speaking directly on issues of self-confidence, that child might have been able to be saved
Oh,
or at least
yeah,
helped in some way after
right.
the effect. I mean, it's such a complex thing, but I think ignoring it is not the right thing to do.
Mm. I agree with you. Now, during this time, that's one of the main concerns for children that are stuck at home in unsafe situations. And
Yeah.
sometimes you can't. I mean, information definitely helps because if the child knows that what has happened to him, to her, or to them, that this is not normal,
Yeah.
knowing that there is someone out there, an institution or help,
Uh,
a person out there that can confirm that to you and help you get out. It's such an amazing help. But
yeah,
if
because
you don't
it's
know, you
and the
don't.
opposite. Yeah, and the opposite is so heartbreaking to think that there are children out there who really don't understand what has happened to them.
Mm,
They don't even know that what has happened to them is wrong.
mm,
They have it in their poor little minds, this image of this being normal
mhm.
because some adult whom they trust is the actual perpetrator
Right.
of the trauma against them. How is that poor little child supposed to know that this is wrong unless there's some form of education and
Mm.
guidance from adults so that that child learns that this is not proper, this is not supposed to happen?
Yeah, and that goes back to
It's sad.
goes back. It is, yeah. That goes back to the idea of a secure base. So if
Yeah,
your home is supposed to be your secure base, but if it's not your secure base, the we need to be able to provide it elsewhere. We need to create the spaces for people to go out there and be safe.
yeah.
And
I,
education is part of it.
Sure. I had some numbers that I used on another podcast episode, but it's frightening
Mm,
how the incidences of domestic abuse have gone way up, both here in Norway and back in the United States.
mm,
And then the instances of child abuse, both physical, emotional, or sexual abuse,
mhm.
have gone up even more. It's
Yeah.
yeah. Welcome to COVID. Welcome to the COVID times.
Yeah, I was watching the news the other day, and they were saying about how here in Norway, people who have never been violent towards their children suddenly are losing it. And that's also got to do with isolation and the increased
Yes.
frustration of whether you've lost your job or the insecurity of what's going to happen. And eventually it implodes and
Yeah.
explodes.
And I was talking about how I've kind of settled into this new reality of being at home and being isolated.
Mm,
And I talk about that not to brag. I consider myself extremely
mm,
blessed in all ways. And it's to me, it's such a blessing to have been home and been isolated um, with my wife, with my children. This extra time with the kids when it comes to schoolwork. They're right now as I speak on the other side of my studio wall, my daughter is sitting there, and then next to her, my son is sitting there, and they're doing their schoolwork.
mm,
And when I'm done with this episode, I'll go in, I'll check on them, and they can ask me questions, and I'm more available
mm.
for that scholastic bit of their tiny little lives, much more now than I was before COVID. And through that, it has just opened up another door in that father child connection.
How
And I
wonderful.
say this again, not to brag,
Mm,
but to count my blessings and put it out there and hope that some parents who, and I know there's parents who are struggling, they're struggling with identity, they're struggling financially,
Mm.
career-wise, if you can find, and I'm speaking directly to those adults out there, if you can find the blessing, find that new door that can open to a new connection with your children, with your husband or wife, and try and exploit that. This is a time of loss. It's a time of frustration, but it can also be a time of a new discovery.
Yes, that's really beautiful. Absolutely. I think if
I
people,
truly feel that.
and I think maybe it has to do with, I don't know, you tell me, but you seem to have time to do your own thing, to be in your you have a space for yourself, and then you can nurture, and then you can go out and give, right?
That time for myself is so
Mm.
important. I've talked about this before. Every day I take at least 10 minutes, sometimes longer, sometimes as long as an hour, where I sit by myself, whether it's here in my studio or out in the living room on the couch, or sometimes I'll just crawl into the bed. 10 minutes of call it what you want. I call it all things: meditation, prayer, solitude, deep thinking, relaxation. And I try to practice non-thinking, and I try to find, well, I don't try to find it, but I try to allow peace to come to me. And I'm telling you, people, I know there's people out there who are shaking their heads. Oh my gosh, that's so metaphysical. It's weird. It's so left-wing, new line craziness. Call it what you want, but I call it health. I call it growth. I call it peace. And if people would just take that 10 minutes for themselves, you will be so refreshed. You'll find that you have more time and energy for others.
Yeah.
It works. It works. And I get it. People are so consumed with frustration right now that you may feel like you don't have time for your spouse or for your kids. Okay. Who am I to say that you don't have that time? That is your reality. But I'm just throwing out that suggestion of just taking 10 minutes for meditation, prayer, whatever you want to call it. 10 minutes for yourself and see what it does. I live by that. I live by that, and it's helped me.
Yeah, it's a mindful way of being and being present. That's a
Absolutely.
wonderful way of doing it, because sometimes that's all you need to keep going for
Yeah.
the day. There's a really lovely exercise that can be done in the morning, and it doesn't require you to have a yoga mat or anything like that. But it is for you to give yourself a little time out. If you can, if you have the chance to walk, even if it's around your house or your neighborhood, leave your devices, leave your phone at
Drop
home.
that phone.
Leave it at
Drop
home,
that phone.
and go out for 5 or 10 minutes, and then do the exercise of noticing. So, and you can stop on the way. You're like, oh, that's a flower. I haven't seen that flower before. It's got those petals. And just basically notice, observe, notice, and then release. And then you move on to the next thing. And then look at it with childlike wonder. Just like you see kids in the street suddenly stopping it because they saw a bird. That sort of connecting to that kind of energy could be really, and breathe. Definitely, we forget to breathe.
And breathe. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's very giving to do that. I'm a believer in having focus first and foremost on myself, because I need to put myself in as solid a position as possible if I'm ever going to be of any use to anybody else. Right. So there's no ego in that. Of course there's an ego, but there's no negative egoism in that. Some people are afraid to look at themselves. Some people are afraid to take that time for themselves, but it may be uncomfortable to start. It may be a little bit weird to start, but I guarantee you, if people can just learn to do that, take that time for themselves, whether it's a walk outside with no phone or sitting down, actively taking that step to sit down, be still, and stop thinking.
Right.
It's not going to hurt.
It is. There's what does it take? 21 days. 21 days to create a new habit. So if you do that for 21 days, whether it's that walk around
10 minutes.
yeah,
10 minutes a day. Yeah.
wonderful. See what happens. What kind of new ideas? What kind of new energy do you get? Do you have more energy for the things that you really want to do? How creative are you feeling after that? I've done those exercises, and I've done some wonderful things after that. And the best thing
Yeah,
about it is
yeah,
feeling good. I think that's the best reward.
yes,
Going from not feeling
yeah.
so great to feeling quite good. Um,
Have you ever experienced going into a session with a client and you're not quite ready because you may be preoccupied with your own troubles?
I have
I see
this.
that as an enormous challenge.
Mm,
If I were to be in a position as yours, an enormous challenge to clear away my own mess so that I can help someone else deal with theirs as a
mm.
therapist.
Yeah.
What do you say to that?
Well, life is always happening, so
Yeah.
you can. When I did my training, it's over a decade ago. Took my master's in psychotherapy, and we were in weekly therapy. So as we were training, as we were studying, we were also going to weekly individual therapy sessions. So we had to work on our own stuff.
Ah,
So we got into the habit of
interesting.
that, and the practice of that. To always be thinking about, okay, so what am I feeling now, what's going on, what's happening. And then we also learn when you and it becomes a natural way of doing it after you've been doing it for so long, is that you take it into I have a metaphorical box where I put all whatever it is that I'm thinking that's from my life, and I put this in this little imaginary box, and I place it outside the therapy room,
Yeah.
and then I can take it back later, but then my focus is completely on the client. And
Well, that visual mantra is very helpful, to
very,
visualize that actual packing away
yeah,
and placing aside, putting that into a visual
yeah.
context.
So
Yeah.
it's all outside, and then I have another mantra that I say to myself: How can I be of service today? That's it.
Yes. See, and that fits with what I was saying. It's so important for me anyway to be as fit mentally, emotionally, physically, have my things in order for myself so that I can be in that best possible position to be of service to
Mm,
someone else.
right.
And I guess that goes back to what I was talking about, the thought of the collective.
Mm,
Um, don't we want the weakest of us to be as strong as possible? Don't we want the most mentally confused of us to be as well put together mentally as possible? Because if the worst or the most belabored of our society is lifted just a little bit, isn't that good for everyone?
hmm Yes,
You know,
I agree with you.
and I
Yeah.
and I s- and I say that to these people here in Norway and in the United States who are so anti all things collective.
Mm.
This word socialist is being thrown around like a curse word. Yeah, it's being thrown around like a curse word, and I don't know. I guess I distance myself from the political connotations of that word and concept and look at it more as a straightforward social concept. What's wrong with wanting everybody to have things a little bit better?
Mm.
What's wrong with that? Who is that hurt?
Yeah. Yes.
Nobody that I can see.
Right.
And that's not
Oh.
political. That's social. That's life. Yeah.
Well, that's not party politics, perhaps, but it is political if you think that everything is political. And yeah, maybe we differ in opinion here, but I believe that absolutely everything is political. The fact that I can work is
Okay. Yeah.
because I'm a woman, is because there were women before me, the suffragettes, and who fought for our rights to vote and to work and to the fact that we have weekends. That weekends we didn't have weekends before. It is because the workers fought for it.
Sure.
So it's
Sure.
all a political. Their movements, all the rights that we civil rights is politics, but it's not
Sure.
party
Sure.
politics. So it's not like belonging to one particular political party.
I understand, but I
Mm,
guess the sad thing is that, and I guess why I distance myself from the politicization of things that I just believe are right or
mm,
wrong, is because those right and wrongs have become party political.
Mm.
To be anti-racist in the United States is looked upon as a weakness by the conservative people in the United States. And to me, that's just crazy. They've made that a political issue.
Yeah.
So, okay, if it's going to take accepting that that's a political issue, to further a debate and to further change, okay, great. But I guess what I'm saying is that it's sad that has been made into a political issue, because it should be a question of right and wrong. And right should not be Republican or Democrat, and wrong should not be Republican or Democrat. Right is right and wrong is wrong, period, regardless of party affiliation, is what I'm saying. But yes, it's a sad fact. I can't deny that politics play a role in social change. It's just sad sometimes the way it has been split along political lines.
Yeah.
Did I explain that right? I don't know.
No, I think I understand. I understand what you mean, because also you're coming from the perspective from the States, which is very binary. You have Democrats and
Exactly.
Republicans, and basically that's your two camps.
Yeah.
And within those two camps, you also have very different views. I mean, you can have
sure.
You have AOC on one side, and then you have Pelosi on the other, and it's very very different. I like to look at it from.
We could almost have four parties.
Yeah.
We could almost have four parties in the States.
Right.
There's two different sets of Democrats and two different sets of Republicans. We could have four parties if we dared to do it. So.
Right. So I look at it from a psychological and a sociological point of view, and a historical point of view of how we move, how we progress, and it's often and mostly the progression has been from those who are oppressed, who are sick of being oppressed, and pushing forward to look at us, we're human, basically. That's it. We're human. We should be having equal rights.
Yeah. Who are the oppressed in Norway? Who is going to bring about change in Norway? Because from my point of view, I just don't see people very engaged. I just don't. I maybe it's me. Like I said, I'm enjoying sitting here doing pretty much my own thing here. No, but my eyes are open. I do see what's going on. I'm familiar with the issues, but I miss a little bit of that radical engagement that is burning for change. I'm sure people are out there, but what organization is out there?
There are organizations doing it, but I think that when we are comfortable, we don't want to rock the boat. And there's a lot of people that are comfortable right now, and not enough, even in the discomfort, are comforted by the discomfort. So that there won't be any major riots, so to speak, at this point because of that. I think we'll see more in perhaps Sweden. Before
Sweden, they're not afraid to get out in the streets and march and make their desires known. But yeah, that is missing in Norway. I mean, people will go out and march in Norway, but not in the numbers and not in the force that we see in Sweden. I wonder why that is.
There's a culture of compliance.
Yeah.
And it has worked very well for to organize this country so that things can. It's a bit of the dugnad, the word of the day. It's that spirit.
Dugnad, Americans. Dugnad, non-Norwegian speakers. Dugnad. Look it up and see what kind of definition you get.
Yeah. So it's that kind of spirit. Like, okay, I'll do this for that old vision we had of the community that we're no longer part of, because people are not. I see it that like the others, which is the people who do not fall into the cultural norms, you get ostracized if you do not fall into it. So you have to assimilate. They call it integration, but it is assimilation. And eventually, that assimilation becomes so, you start either hating yourself or hating the culture you assimilated to, and then you start segregating it. You just split from
Yeah.
it, and that alienation that it provokes, it could, you can have radicalization on one side, or when it comes to religious radicalization, or you can have political radicalization. And a political radicalization would create a, a riot, or get people to march the streets. But I don't think what unites a political radicalization is a vision, and I don't think we have a vision yet here of what kind of world we want to live in, what kind of world we want to work towards. And it's still too individualistic. It's still too, I'm gonna fend for myself because nobody else cares about me, so I'll just do it myself. So I don't see it. I
Yeah.
mean, I could be wrong, but I don't see it right now.
I don't think you're wrong. I don't think you're wrong. And maybe that, in that sense, we probably agree, I'm thinking, because again, I'm kind of missing that stronger, more vocal element that desires significant change in Norway. And I wonder if people are just too comfortable. Is Norway so good? Is it
Yeah.
such a good place to live that it's kind of natural that there's not that radical force for change here in Norway? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I believe definitely that comfort is like a sleeping pill sometimes.
Yeah.
It makes
Yeah.
us just stay
What would
there.
you, what aspect of Norwegian society or culture or politics would you like to see change the most?
Well, I can tell you that right now I'm quite terrified of what I'm seeing. Every day there are messages coming out there that it makes me go, "Hang on, isn't anybody else listening to this?" You know, the idea of what was the suggestion? Well, that undocumented migrants should not get medical help,
Yes. Yeah.
and it's just out of this world. How can that be proposed in parliament? How is this a thing? How are we reverting to fascist thinking? And it's because it's already there in the society. When one of the parties that has been part of the of government proposes this, it dehumanizes
Yeah.
undocumented migrants even more. Um, when the potential new leader of the Progressive Party, the Fremskrittspartiet, Sylvi Listhaug, writes that receiving 50 refugees from the Moria camps, it's such an abhorrent thing to do because there are grandparents here who cannot see their grandchildren in Spain. And I mean, these kinds of messages, they provoke feelings of people feel understood by this. People who are living in
Yes.
smaller areas, perhaps, who do not have contact with people from other countries, who do not have contact with refugees, they latch onto this information thinking, well, yes, it's bad. It's really bad. We should not be doing that because we as grandparents want to go to Gran Canaria and we can't do it because the borders are
Yeah.
closed. But
Yeah.
then we are receiving all these migrants and refugees. And so the humanity disappears, and the humanity is disappearing every single day in these debates. When they say they're going to do Norwegian tests on 5-year-olds who are multilingual, perhaps, and we know that
Yeah.
multilingual kids,
Yeah.
they learn in a different way, but they're a
Yeah.
huge asset to society once out there.
Absolutely.
But instead, they're going to be giving exams and tests so that they can check whether their
Yeah.
Norwegian is good enough. And you think, what do you mean with Norwegian? Are you talking Nynorsk? Are you talking Bokmål? Are you talking dialect? Which dialect? Is that correct? How
Right.
is your
Right.
Norwegian? So every single day, there's something in the news that is taking the direction of politics in Norway into a fascist direction, and that is terrifying. And I'd rather see it going
You
a
know,
different way.
it it's very terrifying. You and I sit here and we talk about that and we agree on the inhumanity of that line of thinking. And you and I are very smart, intelligent people, but we're not, I mean, we can't be that much smarter than someone like Sylvie Lysthaug. And yet she says the things she says. And what gets me is that she and other politicians like her, and I see this back home in the States, they sit in these positions of power and influence. I don't believe that there is a single racist out there that does not know that what they are saying is wrong.
Right.
So, and I'm not saying Sylvie Lysthaug is a racist. She may very well be. A lot of people think she is. I'm going to be nice and not call her a racist. But I will say that she's being extremely irresponsible in her rhetoric when she has the power and influence that she has. And I can never understand what would make a human being say those types of things and take away the humanity of fellow human beings. Who cares if they're not a Norwegian citizen? They're an Earth citizen. They are a human being just like you. How can she just disregard? Because I know she knows that the things she says will cause harm to people. She knows that, but she says it anyway.
So when you think you're better than others, and based on where you were born or the color of your skin, that is supremacy. That's just simple as I am supreme. I am better than others.
Oh, but white supremacy doesn't exist. Come on, you black and brown people. Stop being so sensitive. Come on. Right? You have just as much opportunity and power as I do.
Right. So that is one of the there is so much to work with, and it can be exhausting.
There is.
It can be quite exhausting. So that's also, if you have that in addition, if you are othered, in addition, during this pandemic, it's also extra important to take that time out to recharge, because once this is over, we are gonna have to fight in this society for our right to exist, as human beings, as like equal human beings.
We can't let these things get out of control. We have to keep a certain amount of focus on these issues. And I get it all the time. People tell me I talk too much about racism, or I talk too much about equality. I talk too much about, white supremacy and things like that. I've lost friends over these things over the past year and a half. There's this thing going around that where people are saying that anyone who talks about those things, well, you know what, it makes me uncomfortable, so I've got to distance myself from you.
Right.
And to me, that's cowardice. That's weakness. You're weak and you're a coward if you can't handle a simple discussion, because it really is a simple discussion. It's really not worse than that. Have that discussion, and I think a lot of misconceptions and a lot of ill will can be made right. Just from more discussion.
Right. Yeah.
Not every time, but very often a simple discussion with the so-called opposing side will lead to some sort of resolution at some level, or at least a better understanding.
Yeah. And the shutting down and not having the conversation from that side also confirms it. I am actually racist.
Sure.
but if you can
take that, racist.
Say, but if you say, okay, looks like I have some racist attitudes, I need to work on this. That's a whole different ball game. That we're opening it up, and we're doing. I mean, of course, we have been trained in a white colonialism, Europe, everything. Our history is built upon racism. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So we have to dismantle it. And if we don't look at it, if we don't talk about it, if we don't look in the mirror and say, which racist structures have I internalized and what am I benefiting from? If we don't look into that, then we're just we're perpetuating the same systems that are keeping people oppressed.
Here's how bad it got for me last summer. And this shows how just the audacity of a black or brown person to discuss these kind of things, how it can lead to that alienation from the greater white society. I was saying quite clearly, loudly, and often, but very clearly, in a non-confrontational way, that I thought it was a beautiful thing to see so many white faces. In fact, very often, and most often, white majority in the groups that were protesting in the streets in America. I thought that was beautiful. But you know what? Me saying that, I lost so many friends, both online friends and, I don't know, offline friends.
Mm.
People walked away from me because I dared to talk about race.
Mm.
And here I am talking about race in quite a positive
Mm.
way. There's nothing accusatory towards anyone with white skin when I say I thought it was a beautiful thing to see so many white faces in the streets protesting
Mm.
for racial equality under the law in the United States. Isn't that I think that's a
Mm.
beautiful statement. It is a very non-aggressive observation.
Mm.
Quite the opposite. It is very encompassing and welcoming and positively formulated.
Mm.
But people walked away from me. People ran away from me
Right.
for daring, and I put that in air quotes, to bring up that issue.
Right.
What is that thing? What is that thing where some white people they just can't have the conversation, no matter how it's formulated?
I think there's a book about it called White Fragility that talks about
Yes,
that.
that's on my watch list. I
Right.
haven't gotten it yet, but I'm going to read that book. Yeah.
Right. So it's a bit that we're afraid to look at ourselves, and we project as and now I'm looking at it from a psychological perspective. I haven't
Yeah.
I'm not yeah. From a psychological perspective, we in order to survive, we believe ourselves to be good, right? So anything that's bad about us, we try to we push away to the shadow, and the shadow becomes that place that holds all our unexplored parts of ourselves. But that shadow
Yeah.
get the aspects of that shadow gets triggered when we see it outside in the external world. So what we see and what we don't like, what we do like, and then we go and project that onto that person or thing.
Yeah.
When we are confronted with that, saying, no, no, this is actually about you, then that becomes a terrifying prospect. Oh my God, I believed I was this good person, and
Yeah.
having these attitudes that I'm being presented with means that I am not that good person that I thought I was. And if I start believing that, then I don't know who I am. That's too much. That's the fragility. That's too much to be able to handle. So I shut it out. And I'm still gonna get angry with you, but I don't want to talk to you. I just want you to disappear from my view because I'm comfortable in my bubble of where I am good. I'm a good person, a nice person.
So should we, as Black and brown people, what should we do with that? Should we make it easier for white people
No,
and soften up the message even more?
no.
Should we not have the discussion at all? Should we just walk away from them and just internalize the discussion? Or should we continue to search for ways to pull white people in as allies in the struggle for racial equality?
It's not our job. It's hard enough to exist in the world, but
It's tiring. It's
it's
tired. I got
tiring.
very tired this summer. I got very tired
Uh-huh.
this past summer.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, it's very tiring. So I it's same with the other discussion, the parallel discussion of being a woman and being harassed. I don't know if you've been seeing the news in the UK of Sarah Everard who disappeared in
yes.
London, walking home from a friend's house, and she got kidnapped and assaulted and killed, and
Yeah.
and it's that. And then the report came out that 98% of women have experienced sexual harassment. 98%. That's really all women, basically. There's 2% that haven't. That say that haven't.
Now that number is for women in the UK.
Yes, that's number from women in the UK.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
So so
But it's not, at the same time as I say, wow, it's also not hard to believe at all. That's not hard to believe.
right, right. But the conversation there is also about, there's always been like, oh, if you're a woman, make sure you don't get raped and don't wear this, don't do that, don't do. You can't say the same. It's the same thing that's being said to black and brown people, and it's oh, be nicer, accept that
Yeah.
sometimes you're gonna
Yeah.
be. It's like,
Yeah.
no, we're still gonna be on the receiving end of that kind of abuse. So no, now let's, and I know they say hashtag not all men or hashtag all lives matter. It's the same kind of rhetoric, but we know it's not
Yeah.
all men. We know that all lives matter, but it is you need to take charge, people. You guys need to sort of.
that all lives,
Hmm.
yeah, that all lives matter and not all men. That's just that's a way out for the abuser. That's the abuser trying to deflect the focus, and it's pretty disgusting. So stop it,
Yeah.
people. I mean, it doesn't even help to say stop it because they're going to do it anyway. But I just have to vocalize it. It's so disgusting with the all lives matter and the
Hmm.
take responsibility. Take responsibility.
Right, and it's wonderful seeing now. There are there's some guys out there doing the work,
Yes.
and it's little things. Okay, so you can do the little things, and then you can do the big things. And the little things are like, when if a woman is walking alone at night and you're walking behind her, make some noise or cross the street, because we are
Yeah.
walking around anxious. We don't know when we're gonna get attacked. So we are on
Yeah.
our phones. We call our friends. That's it. That's the modus operandi. That's how we work. Um,
Mhm.
and and then have conversations, get together, talk about it amongst yourselves. And it's the same with like white people. Talk about it, get together amongst yourselves, and figure out in your life, figure out in your families what kind of attitudes, what kind of racist attitudes were there, what kind of
Yeah.
sexist attitudes are there, and then we can start making
There.
changes.
And like I said, I was saying this summer, I didn't care that I was getting in trouble and people were running away from me, but I say it loud and clear. I think it's beautiful to see that, and it's quite true that there are white people who are they're starting to get it, and they're becoming allies, and that's a beautiful thing. And yes, there are some men who are starting to get it, and they're starting to be allies, um, but not
Mm,
enough.
yeah.
Um, if you're a man and you have any kind of a platform or any kind of a position of leadership, the challenge is out there. Why don't you be more outspoken? And I'm not, and please, I hope people don't turn this into this thing where I'm trying to say all straight white men are evil. No, they're not. But most straight white men have a significant amount of power and
Mm,
influence. And my call is for them to use that position of significant power and influence and use it to push these efforts that women need help in and that black and brown people need help in. And I think that's what it's going to take. We just have to have more allies. It's that simple.
right.
Um, Women have been putting a voice on their issues for decades, for centuries,
Mm,
but there's still a lot of work to go. Black and brown people have putting a voice on their struggles for decades, centuries, but there's still a lot of work to be done, and it's going to take that dynamic of men, white men who are in the positions of power, to bring about significant change. Yes, there has been change for women and for black and brown people, but it hasn't been significant change. And I hope nobody tries to say that the change has been significant. I mean, you don't feel satisfied, do you,
no,
Lexie?
no, no.
You don't feel you don't, and I definitely don't
Mm,
feel satisfied as a
mm,
black. So there's a lot more to do,
mm, definitely.
and it should be okay for us to say that. We shouldn't be attacked for saying that.
No, no. But every time somebody questions the status quo, they're gonna get it.
Yeah,
So the people who benefit the most from a society that profits from the oppression of others, those are the people that need to do the change. Those are the,
yeah,
yeah. Otherwise, we're still going to be doing this dance of violence being perpetuated towards us, and us react in reactionary ways. because we've had enough.
Yeah.
So
Ah,
yeah.
see, this is why I like talking with you, Lexie. This is why I love it. I don't know. I guess it's something of an echo chamber. I mean, we're agreeing on all of these things, but sometimes an echo chamber is good. And I guess when you think that this is being broadcast out there or put out there for potentially, tens of thousands of people to listen to, maybe we will change a mind here or there of a person who is in a position to actually foment significant change.
Right.
I mean, that's why I talk about it, in the hopes that somebody will hear me and pick up the ball and run further with it. That's my hope.
Yeah, I'd like also to say that I'm here for people who need to talk to somebody, who perhaps, I know I experienced this when I've needed help and looked for a therapist or a doctor or anyone who might understand things from my point of view. I haven't found a person who has that experience,
No.
capacity, skills, because they're trained within one system. And so it is difficult.
Yes.
They might want to, but it is difficult for them to put themselves in this other situation. And I am here to help or assist in whatever way I can, whether it's through therapy practice or as a person that you can contact. That I get it. I get it, and I'm here. I'm here to support in any way that I can.
That's so beautiful. You are in a true position of service, and I know you as a friend, but I can't help but think you'd be a perfect therapist, with an open heart and open mind for anybody who would need it. How would people? And I want you to know that I truly value you as a friend.
Thank you.
I don't think I've ever said that straight up to you, but I truly value you as a friend. When I think of the good people that I know in my life, you're top 5. I'll put you in the top 5.
Well, thank you.
And that's a list. That's a list that includes my mother, my wife, and my 2 daughters. Okay, so.
Oh, that's really beautiful. Thank you so much. You are very important to me too. So let's do this on open an open channel. It's beautiful.
Yeah, how do people get in touch with you? I know there's people out there who need help, and maybe somebody sees something in you now that makes them think that you might be the one to help them. You might be the good shoulder to lean on, the professional ear to hear what they're struggling with. How do they get in touch with you?
They can find me on Instagram. I'm actually quite open there, and I
What's
share
your
some
handle
tips.
on Instagram?
It's at MS Alexandra Koren. And
at MS Alexander Koren.
Yes. And
that's Koren, folks.
That's right. And then I have a website, and that website is Lexie Koren, IE Koren, Koren.
Lexie. Lexie Koren. Yeah.
.com.
Yes. Correct? Yeah. And I have to say, I need to give a thumbs up to your Instagram page. I love when you put out Instagram stories. I think I told you the very first Instagram story of yours that I saw was just, it was mind-boggling. I've never seen anything like it on Instagram. That was the one where you were, it looked like you were in your kitchen and you were making something and you were telling a story. I strongly suggest for you, Lexie, that you repost that so it kind of comes to the front of your Instagram. I think that is one of the most amazing Instagram stories that I've ever seen. That's what first brought my attention to you.
That was the one with the erotic fantasies and the daily chores. Yes. Right.
And the way it made me start thinking about things and how I view, well, I'm not going to say too much, but I challenge you to repost that so it kind of comes to the front of your feed. And just people, you guys need to see this lady and how she works and how she approaches mental health, how she approaches sexual health. What did I say to you that time when I was on stage? Kaylin.
Muchas gracias.
It's beautiful. It's just beautiful the way you think and the way you approach things. I love it.
Thank you. Well, yeah, it's all connected. I have this. So I'm trained before I was a psychotherapist. I was an actress, and so
Yeah.
I saw that theater had such a great potential
Yes.
to heal and to help and to obviously tell stories. I did a lot of human rights work with the theater back in the day, and then I trained as an integrative arts psychotherapist. So I use drama therapy, I use music therapy, and art therapy, and regular talk therapy as well, and then later did my sexology training. So it is basically putting all of it into that big wonderful space of exploration. So these are all tools that can be used in a meeting or a consultation, but it's all available there for you to be able to express yourself, because sometimes we don't have words for the things that we are feeling.
That's
And
right.
maybe a song might be the thing that expresses that thing for you.
I was just going to say, I fall into that constantly. It's something on my mind. Maybe it's something I feel good about. Maybe it's something I'm struggling with. No idea how to say it. I don't really feel comfortable even saying it to my wife. So I'll put it in a song.
Right. Yes.
You know, that theatrical expression, whether it's song, whether it's acting, whether it's traditional theater. Wow. I mean, there's so much healing in that, and being able to express oneself through an art form like that.
Yes.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
And there's something ritualistic about it. So this ritual has something sacred about it. And if we are able to, like in these times of the pandemic, during the pandemic, to be able to create tiny rituals. So either a ritual with yourself, like the walk around the block for 10 minutes, or a ritual with your partners, or so that you can have that romantic ritual there as well. So these little things are really, and then you add them up and really can enrich your life. But it's finding the tools to do it. And sometimes you need to go and talk to somebody else who can help you with that. Yeah.
And that's where I
come in. Wow.
Well, listen, this has been cool. And I always have a significant amount of anxiety whenever I dip my toe into a new technological thing, so that this video has gone so well, has been a joy for me.
Yeah, let's not jinx it.
We're not done yet. And don't forget, when we're finished here, you can't hang up right away. We got to let the uploading thing. But Lexie, I do sincerely want to thank you. I really have enjoyed this. Yet again, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for being you. Thank you for your friendship.
Yes, thank you. And anytime. I mean, I can't wait for this to be over. I'll head over to Drammen, or you come over here to Oslo.
Yeah.
It'd be great.
Yeah, because that was the original plan. We were going to have you over here, but then I had to rush in and get that crazy operation, and that kind of got in the way of things. And now, of course, everything is shut down. But eventually, I'll bring this old microphone out to your place in Oslo, or you'll get over here to Drammen in the studio, and we'll do a face-to-face episode. I'd love to introduce you to my family. It's a shame to have someone who I admire as much as you, and you haven't been in my home yet. So we got to do something about that as soon as possible.
We'll do it. It's on the list of the wonderful things that are going to happen once this opens up a bit.
There you go. There you go. All right, Lexie, thank you so much for your time. Thanks a lot.
Speak to you soon.
And to those of you who have been listening, thank you. Thank you. And to those of you who have been listening, thank you for this little moment of togetherness. Thank you all for your support on the Coming Home podcast with John Allen. Check out my website at johnallenpod.com. That's JOHNALAN pod.com. Check me out there, and from there you'll see me everywhere on social media. I am very active on social media. Okay? Bye, everybody.
Thank you.